The second player detained as the Novak Djokovic visa saga deepens and Tennis Australia's boss defends his silence. A backlog of COVID cases doubles them in one day to more than 50,000. Plus, exclusive details on a major theft of rapid tests from a hospital. A man hit and killed while walking along Sydney Road. The driver did not stop to help. A big clean-up begins after wild storms that hit our southwest suburbs. Hollywood legend Sidney Poitier remembered as a pioneering star after his death aged 94. And the comeback king produces back-to-back brilliance at the SCG.
From Test exile to the pride of the nation, what a triumph for Usman Khawaja.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Blake Johnson starts now.
Good evening. Tennis bosses have defended their handling of the Novak Djokovic saga as a second player had her visa cancelled. A letter sent by Tennis Australia to players outlining the vaccination rules is now the focus of the blame game.
It's believed Czech doubles player Renata Vorachova has just left her detention hotel for the airport in deportation. Vorachova reportedly came into Australia on a medical exemption, claiming she'd had COVID within the past 6 months. She'd already played a lead-up tournament when Border Force detained her. She told Czech media, "I don't understand why they would come to me after a week and say, look, the rules that applied do not apply anymore. It felt like in an action movie and it was not pleasant at all." She was detained in the same hotel as Novak Djokovic. "I feel a bit like in prison," but she did not fight her deportation.
Well, I almost felt sick that we would actually be rounding up people that entered in good faith, came in good faith, had played a tournament, were getting ready for the Australian Open, and then she's rounded up and being deported.
She was originally allowed in, but Djokovic was not, even though he apparently used the same exemption, claiming he too had COVID within the past 6 months.
Well, I think that right there shows you how the federal government decided to change the rules.
The world number one sent this message via Instagram. "Thank you to people around the world for your continuous support. I can feel it and it is greatly appreciated." Support also from an old sparring partner.
Obviously it's a bit of a mess with what's going on and I just don't think we've gone about it the right way. I'm feeling for him now. It's not really humane, is it, what's going on?
News Limited revealed Tennis Australia sent wrong information to players. An email went out saying they'd be eligible for a medical exemption with a recent PCR test because vaccination can be deferred until 6 months after infection. This, a leaked message to TA staff.
Well, there's a lot of finger pointing going on and a lot of blaming going on, but I can show you our team has done an unbelievable job and have done everything they possibly could according to all the instructions that they have been provided.
It's not a good look overall for the Australian government. It's not a good look for Tennis Australia. I mean, nobody comes out of this looking great, to be quite honest.
Novak Djokovic continues his battle to stay in Australia on Monday in court. Nick Kyrgios hopes he wins that battle.
For the sport, we need him here. It's that simple. He's one of the most influential sports people probably of all time.
But he worries about facing him on court.
I reckon he's going to be pissed off. He's going to be very determined to play well and stick it to everyone. He's going to be dangerous if he's on court at the Australian Open. And I don't want to play him right now, that's for sure. Someone else can have that task.
Nick McCallum, 7 News.
And hundreds of Novak's fans have taken to the streets of Belgrade demanding he be released. Sally Guide is live for us in Belgrade. Sally, they say the entire nation of Serbia supports them.
Well, the crowd here in Serbia are angry and they are frustrated that their national hero has seemingly been stopped from gaining those crucial Grand Slam points he needs in order to cement him as the world's greatest player and the #1 tennis player in the world. Novak Djokovic's mother has spoken to this impassioned crowd, thanking them for their support at a rally outside Parliament here in Belgrade. Each of those people choosing to spend their Orthodox Christmas Day at this rally, adding that if her son is allowed to play in the Australian Open, she is adamant he will win.
He said that he is okay, but I'm not so sure. But he's mentally very stable, waiting until Monday morning to see what they're going to decide, and he knows that he have big support, and that all our nation is standing behind him.
Now, Novak Djokovic hasn't enjoyed blanket support from the Balkan region. One Serbian politician has described him as a donkey for not being vaccinated. Either way, the family has called for protests here in Belgrade to continue until a decision is made.
All right, Sally. Sally Gott, live in Belgrade. Thank you. Victoria's COVID case numbers have more than doubled in a day to more than 50,000, but there is a reason for the falsely inflated figures. It was the first day of reporting rapid tests. Health authorities warn the hospital crisis and food shortages will get worse before they get better.
A sickening act, thieves trying to profit from a pandemic, stealing more than 1,400 rapid antigen tests from this Heidelberg site.
Our frontline healthcare professionals are doing an extraordinary job, and we will get through this with their leadership and the rest of the community supporting them.
The desperation for home kits surging on another huge day of cases. At first glance, today's numbers were startling, with more than 51,000 new cases on our first official day of rapid test reporting. But the Health Minister says many of the new reports date back over the last week.
Only about 1 in 5 of those new figures from yesterday were from the 24-hour period.
That's just over 5,900 for a Friday total over 30,000.
That system will smooth itself out, I'm sure, but in the context of continuing rising cases over the next few weeks.
The strain on the state's resources is only getting tighter. There are now 731 people in hospital with COVID, an increase of 87 from yesterday. 55 of them are in intensive care. Emergency physician Stephen Parnas predicts it'll get worse before it gets better.
I've never seen it like this. I really think that we have to try measures that have not even needed to be considered earlier in the pandemic.
The Transport Workers Union says it's in crisis mode.
Transport companies are seeing between 10 and 50% of their workforce reporting absent every day. We need rapid antigen tests now and quickly in road transport.
The state government maintains our best defence against a COVID catastrophe is getting the third jab. They'll be giving grants to pharmacies and GPs to make sure more people get vaccinated sooner. 3,500 children aged from 5 to 11 are already booked in for their first jab on Monday, with 33,000 booked in over the next month.
The vaccines are in the fridge and the staff are all ready and trained up.
The call to roll up our sleeves, heeded by young and old.
It is a protection for me and my family and those around me as well.
Estelle Griepink, 7 News.
And anti-vax protesters were back on city streets protesting children's vaccinations. The crowd made its way through the city, beating drums, blowing whistles and waving flags. Protesters then converged on the Park Hotel to show their support for Novak Djokovic, pleading for his release. A skydiver has plunged to their death at Euroa. The person was found in bushes near the aerodrome this afternoon after failing to land in the planned drop zone. Police will prepare a report for the coroner. A man has been killed walking home from a pub in Melbourne's north. Detectives say the driver that hit him would be in no doubt. They hit the pedestrian before speeding away.
A baseball cap and a pair of thongs sprawled across Sydney Road, chilling evidence of an early morning hit run.
It's absolutely devastating.
The victim spent his final moments at this bar in Fawkner. Police say he was stumbling in the middle of the road when he was struck by an oncoming car just 150 metres from the venue.
The driver of this dark SUV clearly knew they hit someone, but chose not to stop.
A family now grieving.
One of the hardest parts of that is letting them know that your loved one died on the side of the road when the person that struck them could have stopped.
Heard what happened and absolutely shocked.
To think that there was pretty much a dead body right in front of work, that's pretty full on.
To just drive away, it's horrible. horrible to think, you know, the poor guy, his poor family, but also what that driver could have been thinking as well.
Sydney Road was closed for hours today as detectives collected evidence, including CCTV.
The driver may not be the at-fault party, but the moment they choose to make that decision to drive away and leave someone to die on the side of the road, they commit the offence.
Police say there were several near misses leading up to the crash. One motorist had to swerve to avoid hitting the pedestrian. So concerned, he did a U-turn up the road, but by the time he came back, the victim had been struck and left for dead. And a message to the driver.
Ask them to think about what would they do if this was one of their family members.
And Cassie, police questioned another driver over a fatal hit run at Hampton Park.
They have Blake. In a separate incident, police launched a manhunt for a driver who struck and killed a cyclist on Thursday morning. Police made a public appeal 2 days in a row and released this CCTV vision of a man wanted over the crash. Late yesterday, a 29-year-old handed himself into police here at Spencer Street. After hours of questioning, he was released without charge pending further inquiries, but the investigation is still very much ongoing. Police say this is the third hit run in less than a week. They are pleading with motorists to take more care of one another on our roads. Blake.
OK, Cassie, thank you. A major clean-up is underway in Melbourne's west tonight after a savage storm tore through the area. It's another hit for businesses forced to close for days and facing damage worth tens of thousands.
A supercell rolling in from the west as golfers are given a final warning to clear the course. Before the storm tore through, Point Cook bore the brunt, 52 millimetres or a month's worth of rain in just 1 hour. Today, the cleanup continued after this. Whoa! A similar scene at another Point Cook shopping centre. The wild weather forcing businesses to close for days. The water turned roads into rivers and isolated this home in Teesdale. Trampolines coming close to casualties of the strong winds. In Werribee at the local race club, water poured from the roof and erupted from storm drains in the floor.
We saw 33 mils of rain fall about 5:30 yesterday afternoon in 20 minutes. It was nothing like I've seen before. Now I'm sort of talking between $30,000 to $40,000 worth of damage.
Instead of pouring drinks for today's race meet, the event, due to host 1,500 people, was called off, with the race now to clean up and save what's left.
It's been really challenging. COVID's been a really challenging time for the club.
Homes weren't spared either.
A big batch at the ceiling fell down, so I just ran out. I just felt a bit of a panic actually, because I thought, is the whole thing going to come down?
The SES received more than 800 calls for help yesterday. Most were for building damage like this.
A lot of it is just internal roof damage, so the water has come in up under the tiles, gutters have overflowed.
The SES calling in support from other units across the city. At midday today,
we've been going now for about 15 hours and we've still got 70 calls outstanding.
As some wait for the SES, many are now waiting on insurance, with more than 1,000 claims already lodged.
Thank goodness for that. Always take insurance.
We haven't spoken to them yet, so...
Yeah, that's right.
Hope Wilson, 7 News.
Trailblazing actor and giant of the silver screen, Sidney Poitier, has died at 94. He was a star who broke down racial barriers in Hollywood, becoming the first African-American to win a Best Actor Oscar.
Sidney Poitier launched his career in black and white.
He didn't say anything to me about sending me any place. I was just passing by.
At a time, black and white polarised America.
I was raised by my parents to be an instrument for change, for good, for respect.
That he was, and so much more.
20 long years on a chain gang.
Raised in the Bahamas, Poitier moved to New York as a teenager. His on-screen presence was hypnotic, a face that was intense yet kind. But it was the roles he chose that defined him.
The winner is Sidney Poitier.
It is a long journey to this moment.
The first black man to win a Best Actor Oscar for Lilies of the Field in 1963.
I ain't building no chapel.
Yeah, you.
No stereotypical roles as a black man in menial jobs, playing bit parts or a song and dance man. Rather, characters who happen to be black, fighting the volatile prejudices of America's 1960s. A detective in America's Deep South in the heat of the night.
What do they call you up there? They call me Mr. Tibbs.
A teacher in To Sir with Love.
Those kids are devils incarnate, huh? I've tried everything.
A doctor marrying a white woman in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. It highlighted prejudices on both sides and perhaps delivered the line that would characterise Sidney Poitier.
But you think of yourself as a coloured man. I think of myself as a man.
Poitier received a second Oscar for Life Achievement in 2002.
Back then, no route had been established for where I was hoping to go.
Always be chasing you, Sidney. I'll always be following in your footsteps. There's nothing I would rather do, sir.
The USA's first black president bestowed Poitier with the country's highest civilian honour, the Medal of Freedom, not just because of his trailblazing on-screen, but his civil rights work away from it.
Be true to yourselves and be useful to the journey.
He became an ambassador for the Bahamas, whose Prime Minister publicly announced his passing today.
The man who expressed his rage against racial injustice through quiet dignity. The humanitarian who used his steely determination not just to better himself, but to better the world that he lived in.
From Oprah Winfrey, praise for his most magnificent, gracious, eloquent life. I treasured him. Barack Obama, Sidney Poitier epitomised dignity and grace. And from the Academy of Motion Pictures, an enduring inspiration who advanced US racial dialogue through his art. Few movie stars have had or will have the influence Poitier had. He dies a national treasure in the Bahamas and the United States, survived by his wife of 45 years and 4 daughters.
To Sir with Love.
Robert Ovadia, 7 News.
Usman Khawaja has completed a test comeback for the ages. Andrew McCormack, it was a day to remember at the SCG.
Oh, it certainly was, Blake. From the test scrap heap to the top of the pile, Usman Khawaja can't possibly be dropped now. A stunning second century in as many innings proves nice guys can finish first, but have the chances finally run out for a struggling Aussie Open.
It's Marcus Harris, he's gone for another low score.
Also, the long road back to a baggy green begins for a Victorian desperate for a break. An ATP Cup thriller unfolding in Sydney as an injury-plagued Aussie fires up in Adelaide. And Blake, AFLW star Taylor Harris is about to make her much-anticipated debut for the Demons. We'll get all the details on that shortly.
Macca, thank you. See you soon. A 14-year-old boy has fallen when part of a cliff gave way at Barwon Heads. Emergency crews have raced to the scene to save the boy. Details just ahead. Businesses struggling to stay open as tramworks keep customers away in Moonee Ponds. And an ominous warning as Russian troops move in to help a former Soviet nation deal with violent unrest. A 14-year-old boy has fallen off a cliff onto sharp rocks at Barwon Heads. The boy took a nasty tumble as the cliff face collapsed near Bluff Road this afternoon. An air ambulance helicopter was called in to help rescue the teenager, who's in a stable condition. A man died in a similar collapse near Bells Beach 1 week ago. Moonee Ponds business owners say they're heading into financial ruin thanks to tramworks. Kilometres of wire fencing will surround their busy stretch of road for weeks, but the government says the work has to be done.
Businesses fenced in, cut off from customers for tramworks.
Monday morning we come in and we were like caged. We just didn't know. It looks really like a cage. It's really bad.
Shoppers can't drive to any of these stores, and the only way across the 2-kilometre stretch of road for pedestrians is to go around.
The access point to my business is probably 500 metres per side. So they can't access the actual business at all. There's no pedestrian crossings and no car parking.
Dino DePrisco has lost $35,000 in 5 days.
Very stressful, a lot of overheads to pay, no government support for this time. So still got to pay the rent and the wages.
This tennis store is also taking a hit during what should be their busiest time of year.
This is really my Christmas, so it's a bit of pill to swallow, just trying to get back and finding your feet after COVID.
Business owners say there was no warning, some shutting up shop until construction ends. Yarra Tram says the works are essential because there hasn't been an upgrade in 35 years. The roadworks are due to finish in 10 days, but many business owners say between this and the impact of lockdowns, they're barely hanging on financially and are pleading with Yarra Trams for compensation.
I understand the concerns of the traders. Yet we usually do not provide compensation, but we did communicate several weeks in advance.
Kathleen O'Connor, 7 News.
A father and son who killed an African-American man jogging in their neighbourhood have been jailed for life. A third man will spend at least 30 years behind bars. They were all found guilty of chasing down the 25-year-old before shooting him.
Today, your son has made history because we have people who are being held accountable for lynching a black man in America.
His family asked the judge for the harshest possible punishment. The Omicron infection wave is having a big effect on Australia's economic recovery. There are warnings the turbulence could cost many Australians a pay rise this year when they need it most.
Economists had been predicting 2022 would be the year millions of Australians finally received a pay rise. Now, just 1 week into the new year, those forecasts are already under review.
Companies won't be putting up wages when there's all this uncertainty about Omicron.
The Reserve Bank has indicated wage growth is set to rise slowly this year to above 2%, before climbing to around 3% in 2023, only just outstripping inflation. But what might just save hip pockets is low unemployment figures.
We're going to see unemployment continue to drift down towards 4%. It's currently around 4.5%. And ultimately, that will lead to higher wages growth.
And as Omicron spreads, so too does the economic impact.
Restaurant bookings being cancelled, holidays being cancelled, a lot of people staying at home.
We know that you can't get the economy healthy unless you get people healthy.
As cases soar across the country, the pandemic is set to punch another hole in the budget bottom line. Treasury predicts that outbreaks of new variants, such as Omicron, have the potential to wipe 1% off GDP, or around $20 billion in economic activity. But as COVID-19 drags on, businesses are getting better at absorbing the blows.
That economic hit is getting less and less, and in the meantime, you see a good rebound coming out of it.
Taylor Aiken, 7 News.
The president of Kazakhstan has ordered his forces to shoot to kill after days of unrest in the former Soviet nation. The US has raised concerns about Kazakhstan's decision to get Russia's help to deal with the violence.
In defiance of the government, fresh crowds gather in isolated towns in western Kazakhstan after days of protest and violence that have gripped the huge country. These are some of the few videos that have made it out. In the largest city, the crackdown has left an eerie aftermath. There are lines for ATMs and this ominous warning from the president.
I gave an order to law enforcement agencies and the army to shoot to kill without warning.
Messages appeared on local TV telling people to stay off the streets as the government hunts for so-called bandit groups and terrorists. The protests, though, were sparked by rising fuel prices before taking on an anti-government edge in an authoritarian former Soviet nation. Now Russia is sending in thousands of troops dubbed peacekeepers. The United States is concerned.
Having said that, I think one lesson of recent history is that once Russians are in your house, it's sometimes very difficult to get them to leave.
One global market impacted by the crisis, Bitcoin. With usually cheap power, servers in Kazakhstan had accounted for 20% of global Bitcoin mining until the internet was shut off there this week, opening up opportunities elsewhere.
That, in theory, makes it easier for miners to produce Bitcoin, and it might lead in the future to more Bitcoin coming to the market. And that, in theory, would create downward pressure on Bitcoin prices.
For Kazakhs, though, it's no consolation. In London, Hugh Whitfeld, 7 News.
4 legs are better than 2, at least according to this dog. Zoe, a 7-year-old Staffy Cross, has gained global attention after her antics were posted online and seen by hundreds of thousands of people. She's now been joined by 3 companions. Owner Brian says the key to teaching old dogs new tricks is lots of treats. Sports next with a temporarily one-handed Andrew McCormack. Macca, nice guys can finish first.
Oh, Blake, they can. Usman Khawaja has produced his finest hour and given Test selectors an almighty headache to go with it. Coming up, the Aussies heap further pain on England on a day to remember at the SCG. Plus, no favours for an Aussie hopeful taking his first steps back on a long road to recovery. Also, Nick Kyrgios details his recent COVID scare and has an ominous warning for anyone predicting the Joker's downfall, and new beginnings for an AFLW star as the Tigers roar into the season opener. Welcome back. Usman Khawaja has made himself undroppable, scoring back-to-back centuries on day 4 of the 4th Ashes Test. Following England's 294, the Aussies declared at 2 for 265. Khawaja backing up his first innings ton with an unbeaten 101. England now needing 358 more runs with 10 wickets in hand.
Day 4, someone finally sent fine weather and postman Pat delivered.
Pat Cummins underneath it. Safely done.
Nathan Lyon getting Jack Leach for 10. England's big fish netted by who else?
Beautiful delivery to get rid of Bairstow.
Scott Boland snaring the century maker for 113. Cheers for bowler and batter who has a suspected broken thumb. With Josh Hazlewood out due to that side strain, Boland's booked for the final test in Hobart. 10 wickets and counting in less than 2 matches.
4 for 36. He's living in dream world.
England all out for 294. Ollie Pope keeping for the injured Joss Buttler, gloving Dave Warner for just 3, and Marcus Harris for 27.
Has he got the catch? Yes, he has.
Harris now a long shot for Hobart with Travis Head back from COVID. Marnus Labuschagne, 29, Pope's third catch. Steve Smith, 23.
Yeah! Bowl him!
Determined to produce a sequel, first innings century maker Usman Khawaja.
Beautiful.
At a strike rate of 75, Khawaja turned test batting into Big Bash.
Flushed.
As politics and sport mixed in the stands, Cameron Green put Australia further into the black, the 179-run partnership the biggest this series. For Khawaja, almost 3 years in the wilderness now over.
From Test exile to the pride of the nation.
Deliteracia's only seen Dad score hundreds, the first back-to-back tons at the SCG since Ricky Ponting in 2006. Green 74, his highest Ashes score, England's target 388. Khawaja unbeaten on 101. England's openers got a workover but made it to 30. Sydney's weather threatening to have the final say. Andrew McKinlay, 7 News.
Victorian batter Will Bukowski has completed a successful return from concussion for Premier Cricket side Melbourne today. Bukowski made 40 opening in a one-day match against Kingston Hawthorn. It's his first time back out in the middle since suffering a 10th concussion, which has sidelined him since August. Nick Kyrgios has warned a fired-up Novak Djokovic could be unstoppable if he gets the green light to compete at the Australian Open. Now on the men, Kyrgios feared he was struck down with COVID earlier last week. Back to his usual self in Sydney. It's full steam ahead to the Australian Open for Nick Kyrgios after an asthma scare to start the new year.
Obviously, I thought it was COVID. I was feeling pretty average. Obviously, I was pretty much in bed for 3-4 days, sleeping a lot, struggled to breathe, and I don't feel 100% on court as yet.
Ranked number 93 in the world, the enigmatic Kyrgios has put a nagging knee injury behind him for the upcoming season.
I feel like I had a pretty good off-season. I felt motivated. If I'm ranked 1,000 or 10 in the world, I know what I'm capable of.
Kyrgios with an ominous warning for the Djokovic doubters.
If he's allowed to play the Australian Open, I don't want any bar of him. I reckon he's going to be pissed off. He's going to be very determined to play well and stick it to everyone.
In Adelaide, Thanasi Kokkinakis took exception to this point not being replayed.
What do you mean? If it's the same time as I make contact, that's affecting. No, it has to. That's rubbish. That's rubbish.
The 25-year-old fought back to claim a 3-set win over Mikael Emer and into his first ATP semi-final since 2017.
Just everyone going bunter really got me through that third set.
Meantime, Naomi Osaka has pulled out of the remainder of the Melbourne Sat to rest an abdominal injury. AFLW star Taylor Harris will make her Melbourne debut tonight as the D's take on the Western Bulldogs to kick off their AFLW season. Jackie Felgate is at the Whitten Oval, ahead of a big clash between two traditional rivals.
Hello Macca, AFLW is back and it's a blockbuster clash tonight here at Whitten Oval between the Dogs and the D's, two powerhouse teams of the competition and plenty of rivalry. Beck Goddard, we're going to see some of the superstars in action tonight.
This is literally a football feast. The conditions are perfect. Daisy Pearce and the Demons back here for the Hampson Hardeman Cup.
And a lot of pressure on the gun recruit Taylor Harris.
I can't wait to see Taylor back tonight. We know what she's capable of. We've seen glimpses of it over the years, but I reckon that scissor kick's coming back tonight and I hope she kicks a bag of goals.
Looking forward to it. Last night, Richmond got their 2022 season off to a fine start and a dominant performance over St Kilda. The big story out of that game was Monique Conti, more than 30 disposals and plenty of praise from Brownlow medalist Patrick Dangerfield, who says he thinks that she can win this year's Best and Fairest. It all kicks off, Macca, straight after the news right here on 7.
Thanks very much, Jackie. And to golf, and Aussie Cameron Smith has charged to the top of the leaderboard at the halfway mark of the Tournament of Champions. Smith fired an incredible 9 birdies and an eagle to move 3 shots clear at 17 under.
Our first day leader.
Didn't really feel that comfortable on the range this morning. Figured it out by the 4th or 5th and was able to get on a bit of a roll with the putter as well.
Big hitting American Bryson DeChambeau is 8 shots back in a tie for 15th after this handy chip in on the 18th. Blake, that is all for sport.
Macca, thank you very much. Sonia's here with the weather. Sonia, it's dry with more sunshine tomorrow.
And aren't we all looking forward to that, Blake? I'll have the full forecast after the break. Good evening. 85,000 lightning strikes were detected within 100 kilometres of Melbourne yesterday. But after a storm, there's almost always a rainbow and sometimes there is a double. No storms today, but we spent most of it under grey drizzly skies. The city peaked at just 19.7 degrees, 6 below the January average. It was a southerly wind that drove in the cloud and the drizzly showers and it kept it cool. 23 degrees at Watsonia was the warmest maximum. Most areas stopped warming at 21. Much of the state spending Saturday under cloud, but the day's storms were confined to the eastern ranges. It was a cool summer's day for those in the south, but up in the north, warm with maximums around 30 degrees. Tomorrow, a storm-bearing low-pressure trough clears Victoria and heads out over the Tasman as that high moves out from the west. That will help to clear out the drizzly cloud. Around the nation tomorrow morning, showers clearing in Brisbane. There's more showers and storms in Sydney. Dry and mild in Hobart, dry and hot in Adelaide. Back home, and Sunday's mild with patchy morning drizzle for parts of the south, tending more to showers over Gippsland, drying by the afternoon, and there'll be sunshine statewide. We're under a southerly, but winds will tend easterly about the Gippsland coast. Closer in the day will start similar to today, under cloud with areas of light drizzly showers, but the cloud clears to sunshine. We'll be under a light wind for most of the day before a southerly strengthens in the afternoon. That is a time to throw open the windows and freshen up the house. Most suburbs will head for the low to mid-20s, while across the bay it should reach 23 in Geelong. We'll drop to 16 degrees in the city tonight. Tomorrow, a high of 23, which is mild for this time of year. Next week starts with a warm, dry day. It's a top of 28 degrees on Monday. Humidity builds and instability returns on Tuesday with the risk of a shower and a storm in the afternoon and evening, a top of 27 degrees. In fact, there's a chance of an afternoon rumble of thunder on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday. It's a case of watch this space to see how stormy it gets. But the days will be warm with sunny breaks. Tomorrow, once the drizzle clears out, we'll enjoy a sunny afternoon and we certainly can't complain about that. Blake, can we?
It is very nice indeed. Son, thanks for that. And that is 7 News. Thanks for making us part of your Saturday. Stay with us. We're off to Whitten Oval for the big game between the Western Bulldogs and Melbourne. Enjoy your night.